Well, tell you what I'm going to do is I'm just going to begin talking as I wait for what do you guys don't see anything on your end. Is that correct?
You're frozen.
I'm frozen. Yeah. Now I'm there. Now I'm there. Okay, great. It appears that my computer is now agreeing with me. Okay, now so all right, super duper. Okay, and I'm not sure if there's any lag going on here or if I'm sounding okay, but welcome to everyone. It's good to see you. Hi, Alexis. Alexa, we got Mike and Courtney and Shannon and Ben and Vicky and Isaiah. Medina, if that's how you say it. If it's not, tell me how to say it correctly. Let's see here. Why don't here's the plan for this first occasion. I will, let's see, a second here. Mike tells me I'm muted. I'm not muted though, right?
No.
Okay. It may be, if that's still the case, Mike, it may be something on your end that you need to do. I'm going to work as hard as I can to avoid technological hangups, but I can't promise that they won't occur, since that's kind of been my experience. Here's my game plan for this first meeting. We will be doing an exercise of the kind that I plan on making central to our meetings together, where we use breakout rooms and I put you guys to work. You put your heads together to think about a question that I pose to you. And then we spend a good amount of time going over, what your considerations were. So we will be doing that. But what I'll first do is run through Ivy Learn, all the stuff that's on there, as well as you'll be expected to do this very first week of our 8 weeks together. Tell you a little bit about what the actual topic we're going to be covering will be in sociology here, and then. Yeah, so without further ado, let me go ahead and do that. I'll be sharing my screen and showing you what's in Ivy Learn. Okay, so here's the page that you have. First things first, we'll be using a textbook called Sociology by John J. Mashonis. And what I would like to do actually is I want to first order of business is get your hands on the textbook. Here's how you do that. You use, you use this link right here. Okay, my mouse is being unresponsive for whatever reasons. Yeah, so I apologize, guys, that this is going to be the start. So I may avoid going to too many different applications, but so here's the website, textbook. I thought I'd run through it just in case, right? So that's the links up from that homepage there. Select your campus. If you have already done this, okay, I appreciate your patience as I go through this, but I want everyone to see this, so you can select your campus. And we have, well, we've got spring, right? We got spring department. It's going to be, I think I can just present sociology. The course is 111, and our section is EAD. Hit that there. There it is. Okay, so it's for rental, and then what it'll look like, if you get honestly, I haven't talked to the bookstore. I believe the first 8 weeks with the section I had, that they had the online version, and so the online version will, if it shows up, not wanting me to, I was going to show it to you, but that's what you get. John J. Mashonis. Okay, and this week we're in chapters 1, principally in 1, chapter 1. Okay. Now let's see. Okay, so that's the textbook. Course aim. Why don't I read this? Chief aim of this course to convey the sociological perspective. That'll be what we're up to this first week. What C. Wright Mills calls a sociological imagination. And you guys will be writing a paper on C. Wright Mills, the sociological imagination, that's due at the end of this week. By the end of this week, I actually mean through the entire week through Sunday. So I made the paper due at the very end of Sunday. You can finish it anytime before then. Okay. But that requires, I wrote here, getting into the habit of suspending common sense conceptions of the social world around us. And you'll hopefully understand what I mean by that. It's basically kind of, trying to shed the mind of debris or undergrowth, as it were, that you accumulated as a simple result of being a member of society. And I suggest, as others do, that this is actually a principal part of what's called the scientific method. It's part of doing science. It's kind of like this principled idea of like trying to clear your mind of preconceptions so as not to sort of, bias your answer ahead of time before you discover. So anyway, we therefore get acquainted with sociology's major theoretical paradigms. We'll learn what those are, especially the conflict and structural functional approach. On Wednesday, we'll actually be doing an exercise on the conflict versus the structural functional approach. So we'll learn what I mean when I use those terms, since these paradigms remain powerful means for suspending the received wisdom of common sense. And hopefully the value of doing that, suspending that received wisdom, will come through to you. Let's see here. So if I jump to this first week here, okay, and you guys have may already been exploring this, but I'm just going to go through it so we all know what's there and what's available for us this very first week, the 22nd through the 28th. 28th is Sunday, on sociological perspective, and we'll begin with methods, although really methods will probably start next week. So there's this section here, the welcome thing. So let me just go through what's in this first week module. So welcome, getting oriented. Yeah, the textbook, let's see, textbook chapter 1, do the first ungraded assignment. And that's basically just a kind of getting to know you page. So here's my deal. If you read this already, I actually come from anthropology. That's where I got my doctorate. And sociology is a sister discipline. They share roots. They're very intimately entwined historically together. And there's, essentially, it's the one thing that you do in anthropology, at least historically, is a lot more time, or a lot more people spend a lot more time going to places that they're unfamiliar with, right? So traveling and learning about other cultures. So there's this kind of division of labor where sociology is a little bit more stay at home and examine your own society, but there's so much overlap and blending of the two that they're really, like I say, sister disciplines, or two sides or aspects of essentially the same social science. I did some field work over in Naples, Italy, and that's in the south. It's a coastal city, and you can read about a little bit about what I did. Yeah, and then as one of the things that I often do is I try to mine other people's heads for good movie recommendations. And I always recommend, this is one of my all-time favorite movies, Little Big Man. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie, especially for somebody that may be really interested in culture and culture crossroads, meshing of different cultures and so on. It's this comedy, tragic comedy about the intersection between European and Native American cultures. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie. And I think you can still find it on places like, Amazon Prime, or Netflix, or whatever outfit you prefer. Big fan of fiction. Don't read nearly as much as I'd like. But I just mentioned The Road, kind of dystopian. For anybody that's got a taste for that kind of thing, kind of like a post-apocalypse. It's a really dark vision, but it's a beautiful, beautiful book. They made a movie out of it. also. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I won't say much more about this. You'll learn more about me as the time goes on, but I welcome you all. I've started reading your what you've had to say about yourselves, and one thing I put down is potential sociology topic you care about or would like to hear and learn about. Now, just kind of a little caveat to begin with, given that our time is short, it's 8 weeks, that goes by fast. I really have to do a job of picking and choosing. And so there's all kinds of topics that we don't get a chance to cover, but nevertheless, I like to hear what people are curious about and interested in. And so if I often find I'm able to sneak in our exercises sometimes some topics, that relate or can be touched upon by theoretical paradigms that we're discussing at the moment. So if you think of something, please put that down. Okay. Again, this is ungraded. It's just kind of getting to know you assignment. Now, I
have a question.
Please. Yeah. Who's talking?
Could I do this assignment right after class is over too?
Or Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Oh yeah. And by the way, yeah, just I actually invite like unsolicited, if you got a question or a comment or something, or you see that I'm forgetting something or need to cover something, don't feel shy to break in and interrupt me. I have no problem with that. And you'll notice that as I tell my classes, I'm a person who's easy to get into a digression. So if you hit upon a topic that I find very fascinating, I may wander off, okay, on a path outside of out of the main road of the course, and sometimes that's all for the good. So I welcome you guys' questions and comments. Okay, so let's see, that was that. What else here? So there's PowerPoints for everything that we do. Like, so for this very first one, let me show you the PowerPoint. So if you get over there to the PowerPoint, it looks like here. This is for the introduction. It more or less coincides with the first chapter. And what I do is I make videos. Let me mention this right now. This is the way I largely organize these kind of Zoom courses since I've started doing these since the whole COVID thing. Is I found that if I can, I like to offload a lot of the lecture-y stuff, the stuff where I lecture, onto the videos that I have the students, okay, it's their responsibility to watch it on their own time. And in those videos, what I do is I use these PowerPoints, okay, as the organizing principle, scaffolding, and I go through the PowerPoints and talk about what's on them. Okay, and the PowerPoints go together with what's in the textbook as well, although I add more things in there. Okay, and to the extent that students do that, if they're able to get in there, watch the video lectures, okay, and absorb those and use those, then we're able to dedicate more time, okay, which I prefer to do, and I think students largely do as well, to discussion in class, a little more free form. That being said, so the way it'll go is some of our sessions together will be a little more lecture-y, so to speak, than other ones. So some of them will be, look, guys, I want to talk for about half an hour about these topics. I need to do this. So I want to make sure that this information is done. Others in which maybe most of the time we spend doing these kinds of exercises in which we have a discussion. Part of it'll turn on or hinge on, how the discussions go. Okay, so I just want to, from the outset, tell you that I really encourage, okay, vigorous discussions on things. And lest I forget it later, let me just mention regarding assessment/grades that in cases of borderline grades, right, you've been struggling to move yourself up from, say, a B to an A or a C to a B, in cases which are a little bit borderline, a couple points off, if the quality of your contributions in class, like they've been really valuable, they've added a lot to the discussion, kept it alive, introduced questions that are really rich and relevant and so on, I reserve the right to sort of round up the grade, okay, in those cases. So there is a qualitative component. There's room for a slight qualitative component where I reward you for the quality of your discussions. By the way, your participation in class, showing up and participating, is weekly rewarded. So there's participation points. I'll show you that in just a little bit. Okay, so there's the PowerPoints. There'll be one for every week, every topic that we cover. Let's see, then what else do we have?
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, that's Nayeli?
Tammy.
Oh, Tammy, I'm sorry, Tammy.
Not me this time.
Yeah, okay, got it.
So, our like quizzes or exams, is it the material from the book and from the PowerPoint?
It is. Okay. And large, however, I should say, unless I've covered it, it's unlikely to be asked about. So I'm probably not just going to throw random things from the textbook if it hasn't actually been covered on the PowerPoints or by me.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's definitely as far as your guideline for preparing and so on. And we do have weekly quizzes. This week we do not have one. Next week there will be one. And I think there's either 6 or 7 quizzes in all, and they're usually at the end of the week. Okay, now here's the videos. And let me show you the very first set of videos we have. Okay, so that's for this week. Now, in fact, I can tell you right off the bat, I would like you guys to watch all 3 of these videos, okay? They are longer. Now, this is when I first started making videos for the Zoom stuff, and it was before I learned, okay, that if there's a choice between longer, okay, and fewer, and shorter and more of them, it's better to go with shorter and more. So, but I didn't learn, it took me a little while to learn that. So some of these are longer, but watch this one. Science, hard versus soft science, so to speak, and you'll understand what I'm referring to, okay, with that in just a little bit. The status of common sense in science, and all of these, as you can probably even see right here, it's based off of the PowerPoints. Okay, so if you wanted, you could, download the PowerPoints yourself and then watch the video, if you want to make notes, along with them or what have you. And then theoretical paradigms, including the order and conflict approach. On Wednesday, we will be doing an exercise on the order and conflict approach. So I will be actually assuming that you've watched this. Okay. I mean, I'll provide clarification. I'll still talk a little bit about it, but that's what I would like you to watch, and it corresponds to the book as well. Okay, and to also watch this, because I think also for Wednesday, you have a discussion to do. That is a discussion as an assignment on. So those are the video lectures. Okay, and right now these particular ones are on YouTube. I'll try to make them all up through YouTube, since sometimes it's harder to watch them in the other format. Okay, where are we now? Now, and speaking of that, so here, this is it says the 24th, the social science is a unique case. This is a discussion I made it 7.5 points. And let's see, what did I specify? Here it is. In this particular case, I didn't ask students to comment on others. Sometimes I do. Nor in this case did I specify a minimum number of words. In some of them I do. Okay, so it says based on our Monday 322 discussion. And so we'll be having that discussion and or on what you can make out from the document and from your textbook, share your impressions about, and so on. I won't read the whole thing. Okay, so there's that. That's due for when we meet again on Wednesday. Let's see. Then we have this, then there's a second one as well. That one is not due until Sunday, but we'll be doing an exercise on that on Wednesday. But then there will be a post discussion on it. And it'll be due on Sunday. Then finally, there's this paper. I probably won't discuss the paper. I mean, you're free to look at it yourself. And I think for you guys, it may not be available quite yet. I think I may have made it available. I guess I did make it available. Okay. But what you do is you read this. Let me make sure that the link is good. Open. You read this document, this extract from C. Wright Mills, and then you follow these guidelines and you write a response paper to it. That's essentially it. Okay, let's see here. That's it. That's all the stuff that's on there for this first week. Every week, the second one isn't available. I still need to update that one, and they'll become available, as we approach every succeeding week. Let me see. Let me run through what is it that we cover in this class, just to give you a little sneak peek, as it were. So we've got the introductory stuff, but in terms of like actual content, what are the kinds of topics we discuss? Actually, when we're talking about methods, during methods, we end up talking about all kinds of different topics. A lot of it actually is poverty, because we don't study poverty specifically, okay, after that. Whereas we talk about stratification and inequality, which remains a very central issue for our society as a whole. So I spend a goodly amount of time. In fact, just this morning, I ran across a reference in one news website that I go to that made reference to a brand new study that just came out having to do with different tax evasion stratified. Okay, how much is done towards the top, how much is done towards the bottom? Brand new research that showed how much federal revenue is not being gathered and where that is coming from, and that's very relevant to some of the issues of inequality and trends in inequality in our society that we'll discuss. So poverty, inequality, issues of conformity, dynamics of conformity, culture. So I've come from anthropology, and the third chapter of your book is all about culture. I could spend an enormous amount of time on that topic. We only cover it for a week. One of the things I do is I talk about a particular kind of culture, and I have you guys read a couple of very short articles about different cultures. Both of them happen to be from Africa. One a hunter-gatherer, another agricultural group. And just their different customs, their different beliefs about the origins of the universe and so on. And also, one of my favorite topics having to do with language and issues of, does language affect your reality? Does language impact how you see the world, how you interact, how you behave, how you categorize things, and so on. And then from there, and I'm essentially running through what amounts to let's see sorry, what amounts to the game plan for this semester. After that, we will be talking about some of the founders of sociology so we'll be talking about Karl Marx. You may have heard of Karl Marx. With him, we'll be discussing issues of the economy, theories of the origins of capitalism, for example. We discuss deviance, theories of deviance, criminal deviance, non-criminal deviance, trends in punishment and in our society, crime and punishment in our society, and some issues, okay, that are central. So I mentioned we don't cover poverty a lot. We don't cover immigration a lot. Another very, I'm just reading the news this morning. That's another topic that's of central relevance to us. But those topics can actually be brought on board depending on, what you let me know, what kind of things come up, questions arise, and so on. Okay, so we cover all kinds of different topics. Good enough. Let's see. Oh yeah, so before I go on, I'm trying to figure out if there's anything else by way of administrative housekeeping stuff that I need to cover before we go on to kind of the meat of stuff and do a little exercise here. We're going to be starting by talking about issues of science in general. Sociology is a social science, just like anthropology, its sister discipline, is a social science. So it's a science. What does it mean for something to be a science? Is there anything special, unique, more difficult, easier? Who knows about the social sciences compared to other kinds of sciences? We're going to have that kind of discussion. Do you guys, before we go there, have any questions? Let me just see it. So came to the class for the very first time. This week, what do I have on my plate? For Wednesday, I need to get the textbook, if I haven't gotten it yet, begin reading the first chapter. For Wednesday, as I begin reading the first chapter, I watch those video lectures, and there's 3 of them. The hard sciences versus the soft sciences, the status of common sense in science, theoretical paradigms, for Wednesday, so that I'm ready to do the exercise that we'll do on that day. I have 2 discussions this week. One of the discussion is actually due for Wednesday. The other one isn't due until Sunday. And then there's a final paper to submit. Yeah, okay, so that covers everything for this first week. Before we start getting into where I'm going to put you guys into break rooms, and usually I'll just do pairs. Sometimes maybe I'll do as many as 3, but I think we'll start with pairs. Let's see. You guys, you got anything for me? Any questions? Any concerns? Any?
I do have a question about the paper that's due on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it under assignments and there's instructions for how you want the paper?
Yeah. As far as like citation stuff, you don't have to worry about citation. No citation page. I know all the information about the material. Let me actually go back there and see if I can actually, why don't I show you guys where it is. I'll talk more about the paper on Wednesday. So it says download the file, read the expert, and respond to it by following the directions below. I said submit. I want you to do this like in Word. So I want it to be a file that you then upload. So how would you do that? Let's see here. Let me see, student, I have to go into student view. Submit assignment. Yeah, it doesn't show it on mine. Yeah, so you'd upload that file there. Does that answer your question, Tammy?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so, and I will talk about the paper a little bit more on Wednesday. Okay. Anything else, guys? If not, let's see. Let me show you. Let me actually set it up by going to the. Okay, so sociology. What is it? And then what I do is I run through these different definitions. You're not going to be asked to know these definitions from Webster's dictionary, from a couple sociologists. You're actually going to learn who this guy is, Max Weber. He was a wonderful, brilliant, still influential 19th century, 1800s, also 1900s German sociologist. Max Weber is how you say his name. And what I did here is I go on to the next slide. I say, if you look at all those definitions, okay, what you know as a practicing, if you've been in sociology for a while, what you've come to learn is the following: that when these guys emphasize the word science, they're being a little defensive. They're making a point of saying sociology really, really is a science, because they've come to learn that in the wider academic world, all the different disciplines, that sociology and other social sciences sometimes gets, call it a bad rap, or at least it has a reputation as being questionable as a science, that somehow is it really a science, so that you're aware that there's a doubt in people's mind that it's a genuine science in the way that certain other sciences are. And sometimes that makes you get your, it raise your hackles. You kind of get kind of defensive about that and try to make the point that sociology is a science. Now, from there, what I'd like to do is just ask more general questions about science itself. And there's in your Ivy Learn, there's this file here. Now, you see on the non-student page more than one file, but it's this one here that I want you to look at: hard versus soft sciences. So if you open that up, you can actually, if you want, if you prefer, you can open that. And I'm searching for where to go. Sciences versus, here's my PDF of it. Now, what I'm going to ask you guys to do, I'm going to put you together in couples here. And I'm going to ask you, now, so hard sciences, soft sciences. I don't know if anybody's heard these terms before, or if you're familiar. I'll assume you're not familiar with it, okay? I know some people might be familiar with this, that these terms get used, but I would say that they are caricatures. They're more like cartoons than anything else. They're not like official terms that people use, but they're often, descriptors of the sciences that's supposed to capture some difference about them. And I think they do. I think it does actually, it denotes. I don't think it does a great job of describing. I think these words are actually misleading in many ways, that you can actually switch them around. If you could make an argument that you could switch those adjectives. But in any event, here's what I'd like you guys to do. Put your heads together and help fill out these columns here. So in the hard sciences, if I told you that physics, if I started you out and told you that physics is usually seen as a hard science. In fact, it's probably seen as like the hardest of the sciences, okay? And sociology was one of those disciplines that's often called a soft science. How many different ones can you add down here? Okay, what else could you put there? And then once you do that, so maybe see how many you can get. Can you fill out, there's, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can you actually find 6 for each of these? And then what is it? This question here, difference. This question is essentially getting at what is it that makes you put what you put over here versus what you put over here? What are the differences between these hard and soft sciences? Okay, that makes you categorize them like that. What makes a soft science soft? What makes a hard science hard? Okay, so see how many different characteristics you can list. Maybe shoot for 3 or 4 if you can. Okay, and that's the task I would like you guys to do for, I would say I'll give you 10 minutes or so, maybe between 8 and 10 minutes to think about, okay, what different disciplines, areas of study would you put down alongside physics and then alongside sociology? And what are the differences between these two columns? What makes them soft? What makes them hard? Okay. Okay, let's see. So if you guys have questions about what exactly, you don't feel very certain about it, let me know. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and I'll just kind of automatically group you guys. Let's see, we got 12. So I'll do six groups here, I believe. And so it's just kind of generating, okay. So here I go, guys. I'm going to put you into a break room. You'll be working with each other. And after about between 8 or 10 minutes, I'll bring you back and then we'll discuss.
In progress.
All right, let's see here. All right, wait till everyone's back here. What it does on my end is it does a like a countdown after I close the breakout rooms. So it's like 30 seconds, another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll go through what people said here. Okay, just a few more people coming back. About another 10 seconds here. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we're all back now, I believe. All right, so let me once again go to the screen and pull up this thing right here. And I'm basically gonna ask kind of at random here. How about I pick, it looks like Ben and Vicky were working together. I think what I'll do, let me get out my pen. What sort of things did you put in the hard sciences besides next to physics?
We came up with chemistry, biology, astronomy.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
meteorology.
Perfect. Meteorology. Great. I'm just going to kind of go on, and how about now I pick Ashley and Shannon. Did you guys have anything under the hard sciences that wasn't already chosen, that isn't already listed here?
Sadly, no. We couldn't think of anything else other than those ones.
Super. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's not. How about sociology? What did you guys put next to sociology?
We thought of stuff kind of like anatomy and physiology, like psychology, and I think we had archaeology too.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? So for anatomy, I would actually put anatomy under the hard sciences. I think typically it would go there, and hopefully you'll see why in a little bit. Now again, these aren't like official categorizations, but they usually like capture like general ideas that people often have about the difference between. But psychology definitely would go there. I can't remember, you said anatomy and maybe physiology. You said.
Yeah.
Physiology. I think I would put both of those over here, and I would actually say that they belong to the family of biological sciences, I would suggest.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the sense that they're the kind of science of living things. All things living, organisms, essentially, things with cells and the like. And yeah, I'll find psychology listed besides the sociology. How about if I went to Nayeli and Courtney? Did you guys have anything under physics that's not already listed?
We also put math, but I'm not sure for physics.
All right. And you know what I'm going to do with math? I'm going to go, okay, so math was there. You guys put down math. And I'm going to put an asterisk there because there's just something about it that I want to observe. So that's a good one. How about under sociology? What did you guys all have?
The same one, like we had psychology and anthropology.
And whatology?
Yeah. I don't know how to say it. It would be, and here, I can type it in the chat so I don't mess up.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Let's see here for the chat. Oh, anthropology. Absolutely. Anthropology. I would say that often gets placed there. Yes, definitely. Anthropology. And, and essentially that's the study of it's anthropos is a word that happens to mean humans or yeah, humans essentially, anthropos. Let's see if I went on to, how about, how is the name said? Is it Isaiah? Is that right? And
It's Isaiah.
Isaiah, and then Tammy, what did you guys, do you have anything down for physics that's not already up there?
I think we had. Hold on. Tammy would have to tell you. She had the list.
Let's see. Tammy? She might be muted. Or no? Let's see. Well, tell you what, how about if, let me try one more here. Alexis and, let's see, who did we have? Alexis and, is it Tyson?
Yeah, it's Tyson.
Did you guys have anything in the hard sciences that's not listed already?
I think we came up with about the same that everyone else did.
How about for sociology?
We had the same there too.
You have psychology and sociology and anthropology. Okay, super. Let's see here. Well, then how about this, Alexis? What did you guys come up with, like, for differences? What is it that makes a soft science soft and a hard science hard? What kind of strikes you when you guys look at these? What seems to be a kind of difference between them?
I guess how we distinguished it, I guess how we talked it over to get what we got was we just put like sciences that we felt were harder, like to understand and comprehend.
Ah, okay. So you
So we
did.
did.
Mhm.
I looked it up, and hard is like natural sciences, soft is like based on like I don't remember what exactly it said. Social sciences is soft.
Okay, yeah, so you could say the social sciences in general, what's often called the social sciences. So that usually includes sociology and anthropology. I wonder if anybody had economics, or they thought of economics and where they might have put it. I can simply tell you that in the past, economics often gets put in the soft sciences. I've had some people who've pushed it over here. So in other words, there is actually no correct answer for this. I'm just kind of, in a way, the exercise is to try to get at ideas that we may already have about some of these sciences and what the differences might be. How about Alexis? And then so the last name of Poznansky, is that right? What did you guys get for like differences between the hard and the soft sciences?
My last name is Poznansky, and I do prefer to be called Lexi, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. You said differences though?
Yeah.
We said that hard sciences involve more like formulas and equations and like use of scientific processes.
Okay, so formulas and equations, especially if you like think about physics, for
Chemistry and-
example.
yeah.
Yeah, physics is full of math. In fact, it almost seems to be purely math, right? So you have things like, the only formula I can ever remember is that force equals mass times acceleration, right? Yeah, so formulas, so it seems to be a bit more mathy. At least on, and by the way, so then the last answer did have to do with actually like intellectual difficulty, like just like how difficult is it to comprehend or not. You know what? And to tell you the truth, that's actually I think that's a very common description, that especially like physics, chemistry, and so on, is being really, really difficult, and that it takes a relatively rare mind, especially one gifted in mathematics, to do well at it. But and even though that's a really common kind of characteristic, it hasn't been brought up that often in these classes. I'm not sure what to do with it. I'm not going to come out and say one way or another that it's right or wrong. In fact, well, I'll make a point towards the end that perhaps in some respects we could actually switch these around, and we could actually make a case that in many ways the subject matter dealt with by the soft sciences is inherently more difficult to comprehend, okay, than the hard sciences, okay? But we'll get to that point. I wanted to raise this up. How about, before I go on there, I've actually got some things that I want to share with you guys, but I wanted to see what you got first. Vicky, what did you guys get, you and Ben, or Ben, if you wanted to say, for the differences? What is it that makes the soft sciences soft and the hard sciences hard?
I had said that the hard is more in depth in the topics, and the soft is like they can't be measured. There's like no math or no formulas.
Okay, no math, no formulas. Another thing, so measurement, right? And usually if you're talking about formulas where you have some kind of like value, right? A numerical value that you can plug in, to variables, it means that things are actually being measured, right? They have some kind of numerical quantity you can attach to them. And usually that goes together with the idea of like precision, that there's a degree of exactitude or precision that you can get in the hard sciences, in physics and chemistry and astronomy and so on, that is harder to come by in the soft sciences. Maybe you can defend that point, okay? Maybe not. I will say, and at this point, let me kind of show my hand. And my hand is basically this, that in a way, these really are caricatures. For some reason, in the popular mind, you guys more or less are getting kind of characteristic distinction between the hard and the soft sciences that is normally given. But to kind of give away the climax of the story here, under closer scrutiny, you begin to see that what's an apparent difference breaks down, and that they largely share a lot of features. So that in the soft sciences, in sociology, there's quantitative methods, there's measurement, there's ample use of mathematics, especially statistical, probabilistic, mathematical techniques that are used. And, we'll actually get to the issue of precision, okay, when we bring this up, when we talk about issues of, for example, the difference between what's called reliability and validity, okay, issues you can raise with regard to the measurements you make in the social sciences as well as elsewhere. Let me see, let me push this over now to, how about Alexis and Mike? What did you guys have for differences?
I just said that last one about the formulas and
Oh,
stuff.
that was you two guys. Okay, I have to get straight. Who's here? Okay, that was Alexis. There's another, and Alexis and Tyson and Alexis. Did you guys come up with like what are the major distinctions? Did I already ask you?
Yeah, you did.
You did. Okay. How about Courtney and Nayeli?
Brett, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you also asked us.
Yes. Okay, and let's see, who haven't I asked yet? Ben and Vicky. Okay, perhaps I've gotten through everyone. Is there anybody, before I stop, does anybody else want to share anything? Can you think of other differences that there might be between the hard sciences and the soft sciences.
Brett, can you hear me now at all?
Yes.
You can.
Yes.
Okay. I had to get out and then come back in because
Oh, okay. Got it.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I did type in the ones that me and Isaiah had. I typed them into chat.
Let me see here. Let me check them real quickly. Sorry, guys. Rejoin that, sure. List in chat. Hard sciences were not up there. Geometry, earth sciences, and medicine. Okay, yeah, great. I would put that. What did you guys have for the soft sciences?
Psychology. So we had the same that everyone else did.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Just thinking more of like we were thinking more of like mental, like speech therapy, like all those types of things.
Ah, okay. Oh, speech therapy for like the soft sciences?
Soft sciences, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Speech therapy. You know, this is actually raising like I think big questions about like definition. How do we define a science? So science is kind of a knowledge project. We know that, right? It's a kind of project whereby we try to come to knowledge or add to our knowledge about the world. I suspect some other disciplines like medicine, even while overlapping with science, one might want to distinguish between that and say the biological sciences, the chemical sciences, and so on, and say that some practices are applications of science. So you got the science and then you actually have the application of it. And I suspect speech therapy might be the same kind of thing, where you take linguistic, physiological, and other kinds of sciences that tries to come to understanding of how the speech centers of the brain works, how the vocal apparatus works or does not work. And then in a therapeutic situation where you're trying to work on some kind of impediment to clear speech, you try to apply what you know, which just raises a general question about definition. Do you guys, Alexis, Vicky, Isaiah, Tyson, or does any other like distinctions between the hard and the soft sciences occur to you as we're talking here? Like what makes physics a different kind of endeavor than, say, sociology or psychology? Why would we want to call one a hard science versus a soft science?
Because like the hard sciences are more of like things like the earth and like biology, like the physical part, and like sociology is kind of like pertains to like social, like people and like your mind. So I guess it's not tangible really.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is kind of like that the hard sciences deals with stuff that you can like really hold in your hand. They're objects, right? They're things, they're stuff, okay? Tangible.
Yeah, stuff that you're working with, yeah.
Yeah, and then you brought up here, you said you use this word mind, so kind of mental phenomena. Things like how can you hold a virtue? How can you hold a belief? How can you hold a value? How can you hold, right? That kind of thing.
I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I think you got at what is often used as a fundamental distinction between these two realms. So I think there is this kind of notion that the things in the hard sciences are much more tangible. You can hold them in your hands. They're made of real stuff. Whereas a lot of the stuff that you deal with in psychology and sociology and so on is a lot more fluffy or ethereal, right? It just It kind of falls through the hands because it's mostly stuff of the mind, right? Beliefs and so on. Yeah, I think that's fair. The only thing that I would say is, just like some of the other distinctions, you can probably on a first pass, it looks good as a distinction. if you look at it closer, there's ways in which the distinction may actually break down, especially if you allow that from at least one point of view, mental phenomena are nothing more than certain kinds of actions or patterns of the brain. And the brain is nothing more, right, than, you know, certain kinds of chemical and electrical fluxes and interactions. So that for every belief or every virtue or every, you know, disposition to act or whatever, there's some kind of correlate thing going on in the brain. So the brain really is, or beliefs really are in that sense, just as much an object, a material object, as anything dealt with by physics or chemistry. So usually I think it breaks down to material objects versus mental objects. But, and in fact, more and more over the last several decades, psychology, anthropology, economics, all of the social sciences have made more and more use of fMRI machines, right? Magnetic resonance imaging in order to like capture brain activity as one is having a certain thought or experiencing a certain emotion that goes together with an attitude or what have you. So again, in many ways, other people have brought up, for example, that, and this goes along with like precision and formulas, that the hard sciences are where you find laboratory experimental methods. And it's true that that's much more the case on the whole than in the social sciences. And you have to be, in many ways, a lot more ingenious and clever to come up with experimental laboratory, you know, setups in order to deal with sociological or social scientific questions. However, both methods get applied, or that method gets applied in both places. And when we get to methods next week, we'll actually see the use of experiments. One thing that Lexi, right? Not okay. That Lexi, and how do you pronounce the last name again? Because I mispronounced it that first time.
It's Poznansky.
Poznansky. So Lexi brought up the formula. One thing about the formula, and I said force equals mass times acceleration, or you could have the ideal gas laws, or you could have whatever formula you can think of, right? Usually an equation, a mathematical expression that captures what? So it captures very often what sometimes said is a natural law. Now, here's a question for you guys. Are there anything like natural laws, or even think of things like physical constants that you can find in the social sciences in the same way that you can, say, in physics or chemistry? Now, there's actually an open question, and philosophers of science have like little fistfights over this one. Like, are there such things as natural laws in biology? And there's a respectable position that actually says there are no such things as biological laws, although there's others who say there are. And for instance, Darwinian natural selection would be something like a natural law, okay? But it's been argued that there are no such things as natural laws in the social sciences. What are the features of a natural law? What are the features of a natural law? Like force equals mass times acceleration. And why wouldn't you find such a thing in the social sciences? Or why would somebody argue that you wouldn't find such a thing in the social sciences? What is it about a so-called natural law like force equals mass times acceleration, or, you know, E equals mc squared, you know, to name another? And I'm just pausing a bit because, you know, it's the kind of thing that might give you pause. Like, why would it? Or maybe we can. Why? Maybe you think it's perfectly reasonable that you would find the social world chock full of natural laws. Well, one thing that seems to characterize a natural law is that it's universal. So if force equals mass times acceleration applies on my desk as I drop my pen, okay, given the force of gravity, you know, it also applies on other planets, including Pluto and other galaxies. It applies today in 2021 in March the 22nd, and yesterday, and 2 million years ago, right? So for all, in all times and in all places, this expression holds true, okay? Are there such expressions in the social sciences where in all times and in all places, okay, some kind of verity, some kind of regularity, okay, holds true? And it's been argued by some that the social world is made of such stuff that it works against the possibility of having a natural law, that there's a kind of changeability and flux to the social world that there isn't in. There's also a kind of feedback relationship between what's studied and who studies it that perhaps there isn't in the natural world. Now, let's see what else. Let me actually clean this up. I wrote all kinds of stuff on here, but there's a couple things that I wanted to bring up regarding just in general science. Okay, so I love the philosophy of science. We could have a whole semester if we wanted, okay, if it was possible to do like the philosophy of science and what it would have to say about sociology. But for now, I'm going to keep things sort of rather short. And let's just say a science. What's a science? Oh, by the way, so somebody brought up math. Why did I put an asterisk at math? Because I wondered whether or not math was a science. Is math a science? Physics is a science. Sociology is a science. Psychology is a science. People have wondered whether or not math is a science, and they've doubted whether it is. And here's what I want to bring up. This possibility that perhaps math is not empirical in the way science is. And here's a word I want you to know. So empirical, and you'll read this in the chapter. Actually, this won't be until the chapter on methods. Empirical, anybody run across that term before? You may have already. You may be familiar with it already. Has anybody ever heard that term, use that term?
Isn't it in math? Isn't it a math term?
Like the empirical method, is that a thing?
Yes, that is a thing.
Okay.
What kind of thing is it?
I do not know. Just the phrase.
So here you go. Here's fancy word of the day. Fancy word of the day is empirical. All it means, guys, is that it's data driven. That's all it means. It means that, so what does psychology do? It deals with data. It gathers some kinds of data. What does that mean? It means you use your senses. You observe stuff. Usually human beings, they use their eyes because we're such visual creatures. It could be other kinds of data. You could get data through your other senses. You hear and you smell and you touch, you have haptic or tactile senses. But it's basically through the external world. Information or news from the external world comes to you. So new stuff, news, and you have to deal with that data, compare that data, analyze that data, and so on. So observation, knowledge that is acquired through systematic observation by the senses is called an empirical method, just like you said, or an empirical science, or an empirical knowledge project. So here's the question about math. Do you figure out a straight line? Do you figure out a point? Do you figure out a perfect circle through your senses? Because if you do, you would be a special kind of person, since points do not exist, nor have you ever directly experienced one, nor a perfectly straight line, which is simply made up of an infinity of points. By the way, what the heck is an infinity? Is there even such a thing that exists that we can call infinity? That's arguable. Okay, so these things appear to be, more than anything else, products of the mind, mental activity, okay, results of manipulations of mental products within the realm of the mind. So they appear, math appears, now actually this may be a caricature as well, and there are people who suggest that math actually has empirical origins, that it comes through images. So it's based on senses. Images in the mind originally based on senses that then get manipulated in the mind to come up with things like points and circles and so on. However, in their pure form, they do not exist in the real world. So people have often wondered whether or not math is actually a science. You know, there's other kinds of knowledge projects. Spiritual or religious knowledge is of a kind that's different from empirical science. Okay, so empirical, data-driven. What else about science? Now we'll actually come up, we'll talk about two different kinds of methods, what are called inductive and deductive methods. And there's even other kinds of supposed methods or ideas for coming up with ideas and explanations about what it is you empirically observe. But what you try to do is you try to generate an idea, a concept, okay, some kind of story about why you see what you see. What explains what you see? That's a hypothesis, right? So some kind of informed guess. Informed by what? Informed by your data. And the hallmark of modern science, the modern scientific method, I think it's arguable to say, is not only that it's empirical, but the principal explanatory procedure is to generate hypotheses, guesses that you put on probation. That is, you're not going to take them at face value. You're not going to believe them for an instant until they've been put to the test. Okay, so they've got to be testable. How many times do they have to be tested? We can have a discussion about that, but they do arguably have to be tested. So this idea of testable hypotheses, empiricism, as it's sometimes called, and so on, this kind of makes up the hard nugget, as it were, of modern scientific method that developed probably, you know, there's no exact date you can say when the modern, what was the birth date? Okay, when do we celebrate the birth date of modern science? You know, it was a gradual process, and you could push it back as far as the Renaissance if you wanted, but by the mid 1700s, I think it's fair to say that something like a modern scientific method had consolidated. And this method is also the method that's adopted, that's embraced within the social sciences as well. So here's what I want to say. I want to say that the distinctions between the hard and the soft sciences that are often made many times rest on distinctions that break down if you look at them closely enough. Okay, the soft sciences uses plenty of mathematics. The soft sciences use many of the same experimental procedures, maybe not as much, but they can use them. They are concerned with precision. Okay, they have worries about precision, exactitude, and so on, and we'll talk about what's meant by that, and actually in the video that you'll watch. By the way, a little side note, okay, let me stick a pin in that just to mention that. Probably today we'll go for, I would say, another 15 minutes here or so. Actually, on most days, I'm guessing it'll be about an hour and a half that we'll be together. We have a lot more time reserved, and so we can use that time if we need to, but a lot of this is going to be offloaded onto the videos. But in general, it'll be between an hour and an hour and a half that we'll meet, and hopefully we'll use the breakout rooms, discussions, okay, to organize those. The other thing I wanted to mention is you do receive participation points. I think I brought that up. And let me just mark that down. So here's how I do that. Right now for this first week, I'm doing 6 points, 3 points per day. If you come, you're prepared, you engage in the exercises, you can get your 3 points. I might up that since we meet only twice a week to about 5 participation points a week. So if you're prepared, you participate, and value added to the discussions, you can get your 5 points. Okay. So probably from next week on, it'll be 10 participation points per week. Okay. One other thing, okay, since I'm just remembering this kind of house cleaning stuff in the minute, I'll return to the stuff about science in just a second, is let's say that what's the policy on like late work? What if you don't submit something, turn something in by a certain date? What are the possibilities there? Usually what I do is the following. Usually I allow late submission, but for partial credit, and I need an explanation for why it wasn't done. Okay. Was it some, whatever it happens to be, there's all kinds of reasons, many of which are legitimate, but you simply need to let me know what was going on. And usually I'm okay with like partial credit. Oftentimes it's like 75 or 80% or something like that. Okay. Whether it be for a discussion thing, what are the other kinds of assignments? We got discussion. Sometimes I simply have you do straight up completion exercises where it's just track down the definitions from the textbook because I want you to know them. Sometimes I have you watch documentaries and comment on the documentaries, which are also often completion exercises. Okay, so those are other kinds of assignments that we do.
I have a question right now.
Yeah,
Talking about
hey, Ellie.
Yeah. Okay. So could we ask like for an extension? Like say you're gonna like, for example, I know I have appointments coming up like throughout this whole month as I'm in class, and say I can't make it to class one day and I talk to you about it. Like, will you extend like the date, time or something if we need it or something? We'll have a good excuse, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I can. Oh, absolutely. If you let me know ahead of time what's going on, okay, and that's legit, then I have no problem with finding a workaround. One of the things, since I didn't write it up there right now, but on Thursdays is kind of a day where I have open, and so I'm not going to hold official office hours, but usually like on Thursdays in the afternoons, I usually just anyway, and it's usually about 2:30 to 3:30. So let's say there was a time that you missed an entire class and there's a bunch of stuff that it was, you should go over or talk about. You could come to an office hour like that, like on a
Do you have that written
Thursday.
in your do you have that written somewhere in your Ivy Learn about your office
I
hours?
don't right now, but I'm going to write that down.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And so that might be, a case where I say, okay, yeah, but you might want to, pop in on Thursday at 2:30 if you're able to, so that we can go over what you missed, that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Let's see here. So I'm actually in kind of wind down mode. I'm moving towards the end of this discussion, which is I'm leading in to the video that you're going to watch, back to the issue of science. One thing I will suggest about the soft science, about the soft sciences, is it actually may be the case that there are no natural laws of the force equals mass times acceleration type. That is, laws that hold true, okay, in all times and in all places. For as long as the universe persists with the kind of uniformly, with the same properties that it has today, these laws will hold. Right now, I mean, there's some candidates people have actually put up, like, for example, there for a while, people had wondered whether or not there was a rule about conformity. What is the minimum number of other people, other peers next to you that had to be there in order to force you by their responses to a question about the length of an object, which was patently wrong. You look at the object and they tell you that it's shorter than another one, and you're like, that is completely wrong. But it appeared for a while that there may be this kind of minimum number of other people who gives the incorrect answer that will force you to conform with them. So it looked like there was a kind of natural law of peer pressure, okay, leading to a change of opinion, maybe even a change of perception. But it turned out that was malleable. It turned out that was itself changeable. And one of the things that made it changeable, perhaps, we're speculating, is the mere knowledge of that result. The mere knowledge of that result may have altered people's behavior, okay, which already leads to a kind of property in the social sciences that you don't find in the natural sciences. Okay, now, in fact, this is let me do this. Let me show you the next video here. I'm not going to show you the video. I'm going to point the video out to you. When you watch this video actually, what it does is it talks about a hypothetical research project that does what? That demonstrates one distinction between the hard sciences and the soft sciences. I'm arguing that the distinction does not lie in the use of math. You find math used everywhere. It doesn't lie in the use of experiments. You find experiments everywhere. It doesn't lie in the concern with precision or exactitude. That concern is seen in both places. It doesn't even lie with the idea that math or the hard sciences deals with hard material objects and the soft sciences deals with mushy mental stuff, okay? Because that can break down as well. So there's commonalities between the hard and the soft sciences. I would actually argue, and here's where I'll tell you why do I think the hard sciences the soft sciences are actually harder or more difficult? Because the subject matter is so massively more complex than what physics deals with. Physics does a lot of like brush clearing work before it even begins by eliminating all kinds of factors that it's not concerned with. It simplifies the world enough so that it can make the kinds of progress that it makes. So it deals with ideal simplicities in order to, arrive at its findings. In the soft sciences, you could even try to do the same, but if you want to deal with human beings in a social situation, you're dealing with a degree of complexity that is, some actually argue it's beyond our ability to understand. Okay, so there's even extreme positions that say that we've actually run up against a wall and it's almost futile to try to deal with this degree of complexity. Nevertheless, we try all the same. I'll try to make that point at greater length later on. So that's pretty much it. I pretty much set up where we want to go. So for Wednesday, watch these videos, this one in particular. Do the discussion on the hard sciences versus the soft sciences. On Wednesday, we will do, we'll probably follow up on that, talk about it. I'll talk a little bit about this as well, the status of common sense in science. And I'm going to say that a healthy skepticism towards common sense wisdom is true of all the sciences, the hard and the soft. And then we'll do an exercise on this order versus conflict approach. Okay, so that's the game plan. for moving on here. So that's pretty much covers what I was hoping to cover today. Now, you guys, you got anything for me? You got any questions, concerns regarding anything? The textbook, getting hold of the textbook.
So the only thing that we have due for Wednesday, then, like, tangible to turn into you, is the discussion.
That's right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. No, you guys all good? Shannon, you good? Ashley, you good?
Yes.
Lexi, you good? Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Well, super, guys. All right. If you don't have anything else, then I will let you go, and you can do what you need to do, get your books, find whatever else, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. You have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.